Hello, everybody. How are you all doing today? So, today we are going to talk about the topic of family relationships, especially when it comes to dealing with an overbearing family member. So, personally, I've had my own share of dealing with difficult family member relationships. I definitely grew up in a very imperfect family, but at the same time, I love my family so much. And I think just ever since I discovered life coaching and diving a lot deeper into this work and doing a lot of the personal development work on myself, my relationship, like I can genuinely say that my relationship with my family has transformed so much. I have a very, like, my relationship with every member in my family, my sister, my brother, my dad, my mom, all of them is very different. And today I want to talk specifically about like how do you deal with an overbearing family member? So one of the relationships that I really had to work on over the years, ever since I discovered life coaching, is my relationship with my mom. And I my mom is kind of like her role in our family is one of those, those stereotypical Asian tiger mom role in the family where she's kind of her presence is kind of more dominating, more overbearing, more demanding. She tries to, sometimes like, that helicopter parent, sometimes being at your life, on top of your life, like trying to control everything and trying to make sure you're doing your things right, your life path is scheduled right. And so that's kind of her presence in our life. And at the same time, like I'm definitely not saying that, there's something wrong with her for being the way she is because she has so much history and so much experiences that made her the way she is. She came to Canada bringing on three young kids while our dad is in Taiwan working. And she came here and she had to, work through language barrier while taking care of her kids. And so it makes sense that there are a lot of things that she had to overcome and she had to really be here for their children to make sure that their kids, their family is protected, is safe. Every one of us, we have a great education. And I would say just her personality in general, that is just the kind of person that she is. And there's definitely nothing wrong with that. And for me, as a child and as a teenager, and I would even say even up until my early 20s, it used to feel very overbearing for me. So it's kind of like that love-hate relationship where I love my mom so much, but at the same time, I feel kind of like stressed and there's so much pressure I feel given to me about how I should live my life. And a lot of it actually has been just pressure that I've given to myself because I know that's what she would say to me. Kind of those things where you've taken words from your parents growing up, and now that has become your own internalized voice. And so that's definitely something that we will also talk about as well. What you will realize is a lot of the times, especially now, I would say most of you who are listening, you're probably in your adult years, and knowing that you're in your adult years, you might not actually live with your parents or spend that much time with them. But at the same time, how you make decisions, you still hear their voice in your head from time to time. And sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not that helpful, right? Okay. Yeah. So anyways, so kind of like this is the relationship that I had with my mom, and this is how I felt about her, like how I feel around her. And after doing this kind of personal development work, I would say my relationship with her has completely changed. I feel so much more at ease whenever I'm spending time with her. And I feel so much more relaxed around her as well. And I'm going to show you, like, kind of guide you through some things that has worked for me, and also some things that I've noticed in my clients as well that have worked for them to really help them shift this relationship with their overbearing parents that family member in their life to one that's filled with so much more love instead of like this love-hate relationship in a negative way or in a way that it's like really making them feel so stressed and really, jeopardizing their relationship, right? Okay. Now, I do want to say a caveat, which is that if it's not true. Like, I'm not saying that all of you, whoever is listening, like you should all fix your relationship with your family member. And I'm not saying that all of you should have good relationships with your family member. That's not what I'm trying to say because there are sometimes you do have that one or two people in your family that you know that they're narcissistic or they really are too much for you or they've hurt you so much over the years that you just don't want to forgive them and don't want to deal with them at all. Okay, so that's not what I'm talking about. So and there's definitely relationships where honestly you just need to set boundaries and just cut the ties because that is healthier for you and it's better for them. Like it's better for all of you for you to do that, for you to honestly live your life and cut ties with them. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. And there's definitely moments where it's actually more important. And you actually should do that, cut ties with your family instead of trying to change your relationship with them because sometimes you just don't need to. So I'm speaking to you if you feel like, oh, okay, kind of like how I feel about my mom, right? I want to have a good relationship with her. Like I genuinely want to, and I know that it is totally possible. But maybe just our personality would just clash sometimes. And maybe there are just some things that um she does out of love that I just cannot. It's too much for me sometimes. Okay. And so if you're in that kind of situation, it actually can be possible for you to truly change how you feel about this one person in your life. And so this is what I'm talking about. Okay. I just want to put like a caveat to that and like um kind of like a something in the front before I keep talking about this. Okay, just know that everything that I say, like every family, every relationship is so different. So everything that I say, I want you to filter it through your own experiences and decide for yourself if this is helpful for you or not. If it's not helpful, just kind of like let it through your right ear and go out the left ear. Okay, you are the decision maker in your life. You know your life the best. And if I'm coaching you on like a personal one-on-one level, then we can really customize what I teach to your own experience. But because this is a podcast episode, that's why I can't do that. So just take everything with a grain of salt and use your own discernment to decide what actually feels right for you. All right. Now, the first thing I want to say is that with this overbearing family member that you have in your mind, whether it's your relationship with your mom or with your dad or with your aunt, you need to understand it's the first thing that you really want to work on for yourself is working on understanding why they are the way that they are. I think a lot of the times, the reason why we get triggered by other people so much and we always immediately become this defensive and we just don't want to be in their presence. We just don't want to talk to them because we're not really putting ourselves in their shoes. There's no empathy there. You're not really trying to understand what they're going through. You're just saying how they have hurt you, how they don't get you, right? You're just like in this very frustrating place without really understanding that they are human too. And there is a journey that you have to go through to really not put your parents on the pedestal, to really realize that at the end of the day, they are human too, and they make mistakes. They're not perfect, and they're also just trying your best, right? So really ask yourself this question. Why is my mom the way that they are? Like, why is my mom the way that she is? Why is my dad the way that he is? And a lot of the times, often you realize that why they speak so loudly, why they always interrupt you, why every time when they talk to you, they always come out negative, is that at the end of the day, there's certain habits that perhaps they've learned from their parents or they've learned from generations before them to see that, oh, honestly, at the end of the day, a lot of the things that they do, they had to do those things in order to survive, literally. Like to survive, to make sure, like that is how they get by. That is how they are able to make sure that their family is safe. A lot of the ways that they even if they come out defensive, they start shouting, they say things in a very direct way, often it is a form of self-protection. And it is maybe it's what they have seen their mothers do and their mothers do before them. And so they're just continuously doing what they have known that they should be doing as a mom or as a dad, right? When I look back, so my mom, as I've mentioned earlier, she's kind of like that, a little bit of a domineering, like dominating role in our family. And when I think back to her experiences, it makes sense that it's she's being put in a foreign country where she literally doesn't know how to speak the language that well, and she has three young kids that she has taken care of. She cannot talk to us about feelings. She had to like drop everything down, get to work, make sure that we are well fed, make sure that there is food being put onto the table. There are bills that she has to pay, and like she has to do those things to make sure that we're all taken care of, right? We don't talk about feelings. We don't, we just like get to work. We get things done, right? And when we find a job, it makes sense for us to find a stable job where there is stable, regular, safe paycheck coming in every month, right? These are what she has known that she's like what creates safety and what creates success in your life. And so she's just continuing to do that, right? And when I think about why my mom would want to control everything and she always needs to be right, and that she always, whenever you, I remember that whenever I would give her an idea or a new suggestion, her first reaction is always no. Either no, or that's dangerous, or she will always look at the negative first, like always negative. Even when you get, like you're doing well in your life, it's still not good enough. Right? Everything is not good enough. Negative looks to a negative things. But I always think about, wow, like her survival brain, like how she has been trained is so well trained in a way where it is honestly just a way of her protecting herself and her making sure like she literally had to be that person who's always looking out for danger for us, who's always looking out to make sure that we don't get hurt, to make sure that we are taken care of, right? That is literally her way of protecting us, of making sure her family and that she is safe from all of the potential dangers that could happen in the society, right? That we making sure that we don't get scammed, that we don't get cheated upon, making sure that we are, we are defending ourselves, like all those things, making sure, like we have money, all the things. It is literally her way of protecting herself and her family. And so honestly, a lot of the times, if you really want to change your relationship with that family member, it is being willing to put yourself in their own shoes and really trying to understand why they are the way that they are. And honestly, once you can really connect with them, once you can really let yourself understand why they are the way that they are, it will already put down so much shield, like put down that wall between you and them, and really helping you see that at the end of the day, whatever they say, like their actions, their behaviors is not about you. It's honestly nothing to do with you, even though it feels like it's about you sometimes, right? Like you might say something and they might say no, or they might say that's not a good idea. They might put you down. Even when that's what they're saying and that's what they're doing, it's still not about you. That's something that you really want to think about. When they say no, when they're trying to like say some things to you, it's their way of protecting you. It's their way of making sense of the world. They're not trying to shut you down, right? This is the thing that you want to think about. Instead of just taking their words and then making your own assumption about why they are doing that, I want you to think about when they say those things, they're not thinking in their head, I am trying to shut you down. They're not thinking in their head, I'm trying to belittle you or I'm trying to attack you. In their head, they're like, oh my gosh, what if something happens to my daughter? In their head, they're like, wait, they're like, no, you shouldn't do that. This is much safer for you. In their head, they're thinking, what if something bad happens to you? In their head, they're thinking, what would you think about so and so? Do you see? That's what's actually going on in their head, but they might not explicitly say it out loud. And sometimes they can even, sometimes even they are not sure why they're trying to disagree with you. But it's a very subconscious, unconscious thing that they just do out of habit. And when you can really see that their action is not about you, and in many ways it's like just their own assumptions and their own patterns growing up and not about you, it will help you from your end to not take things personally, right? A lot of us were not willing to put down our wall, to put ourselves in their shoes, and we're not willing to see that what they're saying is not about me and really not taking it personally is because we think that when we do that, that means we've lost in a way. Like in our argument, we've lost. Why do I have to be the person that is wrong? Why do I have to be the person that apologizes? Why do I have to be the person that sacrifice in a way so they can win? And this is where we really want to ask ourselves, like, where is our ego trying to get in the way? Right? Like, do I want to have a better relationship with my parents, or do I just want my ego to feel good? Okay. Another way of how you can think about this is actually the reason why you're putting yourself in their shoes is so that you can feel better overall. Like, why are you feeling so frustrated? Right? Like, in many, many ways, you're creating this experience of frustration for yourself. And why are you doing this to yourself? Right? Like, mom is the way that she is. Mom is who she is. Why are you making it harder for yourself? It's like your own experience. Don't you just want to feel more at ease and feel more relaxed around her? And this doesn't have to mean, like, this has nothing to do with who is right, who is wrong. This is just about, I just want to feel better about my life. Okay? Do you see? Like, yes, it's about thinking differently about her, but thinking differently about your parents. But at the same time, you're thinking differently about them because you just want to feel better, right? And so, like, what has made them behave the way that they are, and what has made them say those things? A lot of the reasons why it's literally just decades of habit that they have become very used to, right? And we're going to talk about, like trying to make them change in a second. Um, so that's the first thing that you really want to think about. Really understand why they are the way that they are, and really try to put yourself in their shoes and really know where they are coming from. Okay. Number two, the other thing I want to talk about is you want to really think about doing this internal work on yourself. And like I said before, a lot of this has to do with giving them the benefit of the doubt, being willing to be that person that offers them the benefit of the doubt. This means that how you think about them is very important, your thoughts about them. Are you assuming that they are trying to put you down? Are you thinking that they don't know what they're talking about? They are trying to be against me? Are you thinking that they are disagreeing with me on purpose because she just wants to make my life very bad? Right? Because if that's what you're thinking about them, then you're essentially creating this wall between you and her yourself, right? And so this internal work also has to do with you changing your thoughts about them, you choosing to believe that your mom, your parent genuinely loves you. They are doing the best that they can. Like, this is a thought that I love so much, is that they're human, they're trying the best with what they know how, with what they're capable of, and they're doing their best. Like, they're really doing their best, and they might not have the kind of capacity like you to be able to be this understanding, to be able to forgive someone this much, but they're trying their best with the way that they know how. And I think that's amazing that they're doing the best that they can, right? The other thing that, another thought that I love telling myself is that it's not about me. It's never about me. Like, their brain is just prone to looking at things from a negative way, and their brain is just used to looking for the danger first before saying anything that's good. Like in the case of my mom, right? Whenever I say that, hey, I'm like, or I will offer a news or say something, the first thing that she'll always do is she'll just disagree. Whatever I say, she'll always say, oh, but that's not good. No. Or she'll be like, oh, that's such a hassle. Okay. Or like I will offer her, hey, like, let's do something fun, let's eat out. The first thing she will always say is no, or like such a hassle. And she has definitely learned that from my grandma. Like, the older that she gets, the more years that she put that the more years go by, the more I see so much resemblance. Like, all the things my mom used to complain about my grandma, I can see all those things now in my mom. And which just makes me wonder as well. I'm like, when I get older, maybe I might be in the same situation with my mom, like same thing as my mom as well, who knows, right? But I think it's very important to really notice that, and also know that your mom, like your parents, their generation, they genuinely didn't have that much language around topics around mental health, around generational trauma, around patterns being passed down from their mom. Like, those things were not in their awareness while growing up, right? And so you need to understand that, just like you listening to this podcast, and in our generation and maybe even younger, you have so much access right now to mental health, to like just like conversations around mental health, around generation trauma, around habitual patterns and things like that, and really seeing things from like such a bigger and I guess like a woke perspective, right? And like a more awakened perspective of really seeing how the way that things are, and really seeing that there are so many different ways that we can decide intentionally to make the pattern end with us, so that we don't pass on those hurts and the pain down to the next generation. And I think that's amazing awareness. But you need to understand that your parents' generation, they don't have that much access. And they don't even know what those things mean. They're just trying to do the best that they can with what they know how, right? So this is why it's like you really need to know that they're doing the best that they can. And at the same time, know that you're also trying to do the best that you can with communicating certain things to them, and not take a lot of the things that they say personally, right? It's not about you. It's about what they've learned, their mothers say to them growing up. It's not about you, it's about what they have learned from the teacher growing up, right? It's not about you. Don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with you a lot of the times. And of course, like there's definitely a lot of more things that we can talk about this, but also notice that where are you still holding a grudge towards them or holding some kind of pain around them for having hurt you in the past? That requires deeper healing, dif- deeper somatic work to really sh help yourself shift out of that, right? And again, like I'm not saying you always need to forgive and you always need to let go and you always need to look at things from a different light. And at the same time, I also want to offer that being willing to accept them for who they are without needing them to change, it's not you being the victim. It is you being empowered. Like it requires a lot of power for someone to accept another person. And when you truly accept that they are the way that they are, you know you will no longer feel emotionally charged around however they're behaving towards you. If it's not about you, if you can just let them be who they are, I think, and like that would honestly be the first step for you to develop with this overbearing parent in your life. Also, the other thing why I say that a lot of this is your own internal work is you want to notice the trigger, like the way, like why you get triggered by them. It can often come from your own insecurity, your own feeling of inadequacy and not feeling good enough. A lot of the times it can come from your own relationship with yourself and how you feel about yourself already. And what your parent is saying, they're just simply mirroring to you and bring up the things that you're already feeling about yourself, like the things that's already there. Right. When I think about, there was a time in my early 20s when I felt very lost about my career and about what I wanted to do with my life. And so whenever my mom asked me that question, I used to think it's because of her, right? I used to think that, oh my gosh, like why is she trying to control my life? Why is she being so overbearing? Why can't she just give me some space? And I used to feel so triggered. But that was because I feel lost myself. That was because I was also like that was something that I feel very insecure around, right? And so when my mom asked that, it makes sense why those things will come up. So just kind of notice where in the trigger, where what is it specifically that you're being triggered around, and that is your own work of being able to feel to like figure out for yourself and being able to work on for yourself, regardless of your relationship with your parents. And right, like if you doubt yourself, if you're always doubting yourself, if you don't have your own back, then it will be very likely for your beliefs and things like that to waver around them. And sometimes you might actually just need some space from them for a while for you to do this work on yourself, right? Like for a very long time, I wanted to move out so badly and I wanted to just go out and live on my own because I just felt like I can't stand living with my parents. Oh, Shirley, young, immature Shirley. But yeah, I used to feel like I just can't stand living with them. So I moved out on my own and I built my own business. I have my own capacity. I do so much of the healing work on myself. And what's actually very interesting is it felt like a full circle because now I actually just moved back home and I am living with my parents again in a very close proximity, actually, because we don't live in a house, we live in an apartment together. And so, very close proximity, and I'm spending a lot more time with them. And yet, because of all the internal work that I've done on myself, to be able to, like, while I was separating myself with them, to be able to trust myself so much more, have more confidence with myself, and to be able to cultivate my own voice and to have my own back. Now that I've moved back to live with my parents, I feel so much more capable and I have more capacity to talk to them, to interact with them. And I actually really, really love spending time with them. And a lot of the things that they say, what they do, even when it's like their own conflict and things like that, I don't like, I'm honestly not as bothered. I think that's the word that I genuinely feel. I'm not as attached, I'm not as bothered. Whatever they say, I will like often I will like filter through my own mind and decide what I actually want to take in. Right. But at the same time, it's like they live their life and I feel like they just let me live my life. But I feel like I can, like, they were able to do this because I've genuinely changed my relationship with them and how they feel. Like, if I know when to speak up for myself, I know when to, and also like when to apologize and when to know, oh, okay, like she has a point, like my mom has a point, or my dad has a point, right? Like I know more of those things now. And I think that's what made it so much easier for me to live with them and not feel so triggered by them all the time. So, which brings on to the next point that I think is very important is that communication is so important, right? You need to know how to set clear boundaries and also at the same time not be afraid of conflict and disruption. Don't think of conflict as a big deal, honestly. I think I'm very used to it because I grew up in a very chaotic household. Like every member in my family just has a very strong opinion, especially my mom. Like every one of them has a very strong opinion. And so I've grown very used to like, okay, conflict is normal, but I used to be very afraid of conflict. Like I used to be that peacemaker in the family where I would feel like conflict means something is bad. Conflict means our relationship is going to end and things like that. But now I'm able to allow more of the chaos in my life, in my relationships, and letting that be okay. So, and with any type of change, there needs to be disruption that happens first before a new level happens, especially if you're trying to change certain habits and certain roles, dynamics in the family, right? At first, there'll be disruption, and then a new way of normal settles in. So don't be afraid of conflict. Conflict is a way of settling in into a new normal, right? Again, conflict is a way of settling in into a new normal. So, um, and this brings me on to the very last point, which I mentioned earlier, and it's so important. You have to let go of the need for them to be any different. Your mom is supposed to be the way that she is. And you want to look for reasons of why she is the way that she is. And you'll realize that a lot of times it has nothing to do with you. She is the way that she is because of her environment growing up, her personality, what she's no. And can you allow yourself to really see that and allow yourself to really accept that? She's the way that she is. And sometimes I get into like clashes with, or like sometimes when I talk about this, people might get triggered. Like, what do you mean you mean I have to accept how she talks to me? You mean that I have to accept all the things that I think is not right about her, right? And like the question then I want to ask you is, how does that benefit your life to not accept her? Because and to try to get her to change. Because I bet for a very long time you've been trying to get her to change, right? You've been arguing with her, you've been telling her how she should be different, you've been, or just like avoiding her. And how has that helped you, right? Okay, this is some tough love here, but I really want you to take what I'm saying to heart and like try to if you can, right? Like, how has that helped you to not accept her? Really think about that. And I bet there's a reason why you're listening to this episode. Because it probably like you probably trying to change her. I know this because I've been trying to change my parents all my life, like for, the majority of my life. And let me tell you, it has not worked for me. Okay, speaking from personal experience, it has not worked. And when I truly accepted mom is the way that she is, it didn't make me feel like I'm I'm a victim because of it. It didn't make me feel like I'm giving up my values because of it. It didn't make me feel like I have to belittle myself because of it. In fact, it gave me more power. When I just let her be herself, I also allow myself to be myself in her presence. When I let mom be herself, I also allowed me to be myself in her presence. And when she says those things to me, it no longer really triggers me that much because I'm like, oh yeah, of course you will say that. It makes sense. And I get to decide if it can affect me or not. Right? And now, here's kind of like a sneaky way I often like to tell people. Okay. Yes, it's true that you can't get them to change, and you need to let go of the expectation that they will be different and let go of the need for them to be any different. But here's the sneaky way of changing them. Okay. They might change, they might not. Okay. But here's like a more sneaky way. If you actually want them to be different, if you actually want mom to show up differently, you want to really work on seeing them differently first. You want to work on you talking to them different first, right? You need to work on extending that understanding to them first. And oh my gosh, just you watch how you will see when how you behave around them, how you interact with them changes. Naturally, mom will consciously or subconsciously change around you. It's amazing. It's magical. This is alchemizing. Okay. It's like a very sneaky way to do it, but you have to be willing to be that person to start first. Ac- Being able to accept them for who they are is you being in power, right? And it might require a moment of grief. Like you might need to grieve the fact that you realize that your parents not actually not perfect. You might need to grieve the fact that you will realize that you will always have an imperfect family and that there is a certain type of family that you see on TV that you used to idealize so much. And you might need to realize that, oh, actually, this is just how my family is. And it is perfect the way that it is imperfect. And that's completely okay. And I guarantee you, when you can accept your mom or your dad or your overbearing aunt for being the way that they are, it will free you up. It will make you so much more compassionate, so much more understanding, being able to hold so much more space with them as you're spending time with them, and being able to not take anything that they say so personally. Okay. So I hope that this has been helpful for you today. And I know that today I talk a little bit of the general idea of managing your relationship with an overbearing parent, but I can definitely go a lot deeper into this. If there's anything that you would love to let me know your thoughts about this, any other questions about this, feel free to send me a message over on Instagram at Daring Living, or you can send me an email at shir, at daringliving.com. I would love to hear your thoughts on this and if managing your relationship with your family members is something that you are also working on for yourself. All right. Have an amazing day, everybody, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.